Psalms 51:10, and it says that, create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew the right spirit within me. You know, we've been dealing with this thing. It started last night, and we were making reference to it today, and we're going through the different sections and breaking that thing apart. And I really want us to understand how powerful that prayer of repentance is, and also what got David to that place. And the last thing that we're going to deal with is how Nathan intervened. All right?
Okay.
And I just want to tag this portion of the God encounter with the subject with a question, really: where are the Nathans? All right?
Okay.
So as you look around at your table, everybody look around at your table, just looking around and ask your table, where are the Nathans?
Where are the Nathans? Where are the Nathans?
Where are the Nathans? We know that Samuel, 2 Samuel tells us about the darkest moment in the life of King David. We understand that after being blessed by the Lord in many ways, after reaching the pinnacle of his success, after leading his nation to peace and prosperity and power, David fell into a deep, dark, despicable, and disgusting sin. We understand that we all know the story that David fell victim to a giant called lust.
Yep.
Not only, I think Johnny may talk about it earlier, you know, David was supposed to be in the battle, but he was on the balcony.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't the fact that David looked at her.
All right.
It was the fact that he started gazing at her.
Yeah.
Because come on, y'all, let's be real.
Uh-huh.
We some men. Now, God didn't create something worth looking at.
Yes, sir.
You know, I don't know about you. I mean, hey, when I look at my wife, I said, God, boy, you sure created something. Something worth looking at. But sometimes, how many of us have done this? You got that walk by and you said, return. It's that double take. Yeah. It's that double take. It's because when you going back for that second scoop, you know, it ain't look, you going back for that second, you going back to try to process something. You going back to think something, and then when it go, Fred, from the look back to the up and down. Yeah. We all know it's going through our mind doing that up and down. So we have David in this situation, you know, okay? David sees Bathsheba, has sex with Bathsheba, gets Bathsheba pregnant, prolongs the situation, tries to cover up the situation, gets Uriah killed. We understand all that. So everybody's on the same page with all that. Okay, so now a lot of people wonder, why is it that God didn't get David right then? Because you have to understand that between, you know, David found himself in a place that he had never occupied before. You know, that there had been a time when David walked with God and he sang his praises to the Lord, and God was blessing David in marvelous fashions. And I think Nate was talking about it earlier. You know, how many of us have ever experienced just being on the mountaintop? Yes, sir. Well, it seems like, you know, everything is going good. Everything is going right. My job is good. The house is good. My money is good. My health is good. And all of a sudden, things change. Now, whether or not that change is brought on by us or not, but this was a change that was brought on by David. Yeah. And David understood that now he looks at the remnants of his broken vows. He sees the shattered dreams and the ruined lives and the wrecked futures laying all around him. And he knows that this happened because of his sin. All right. So what I want us to look at is that 12-month period that took place between 2 Samuel 11 and 27 and 2 Samuel 12 and 1. See, because sometimes we may feel like we got away with it. All right. You know, because during that time, it was a time of silence. For nearly a year, nobody talked about it. David didn't talk about it. You know how we do. We just say, I'm not going to bring it up no more. You know, I'm just going to sweep that under the rug. I ain't going to talk about it. They don't bring it up. I ain't going to bring it up. You know, I ain't going to say nothing. Nobody else going to say nothing. Maybe everything is going to be okay. But we have to look at, was David in the position to receive to have the finger pointed at him when he was currently in the situation. Because you got to remember, David was so caught up trying to cover up that maybe he wasn't ready to listen up. Because how many of us have ever just been caught up? Caught up. You know, just like my granddaddy told me, he said, son, sin will take you farther than you want to go and keep you longer than you want to be kept. And we'll get caught up sometime. And David was caught up, so he wasn't in the position to receive what God had for him. But that doesn't mean that God had turned his eye to David. God had a plan to restore and bring David back to himself. So not only was there a time of silence, but there was a time of sorrow. It seems like that in this episode of David's life, it prompted him to write two different psalms. One of the psalms he penned in Psalms 32, the other one he penned in Psalms 51. So pull out your phones, because I'll say this is going to be interactive. We're going to be going to some things. Somebody find for me Psalms 32, 3 and 4. Psalms 32, verse 3 and 4. And read that for us.
When I kept silent, my bones wasted away through my groaning all day long. For day and night your hand was heavy on me. My strength was sapped, as in the heat of the sun.
And he said, when I kept silent,
Yeah.
when I kept it all bottled in. One of the guys, David Bill in prayer band, and he said this to everybody who was coming, he said, I came here open. I came here to get some stuff off of my chest. I came here to be an open book. Men, one of the mistakes that we make is that we fold up. We take it in and we say, I got it. I can figure it out. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to make it better. And we don't tell nobody. We don't talk to anybody. We don't confess. We don't, and then, because a lot of times we feel that confession is putting somebody in your business. Confession is a release for you if you confess it to the right person. How many of us have ever had something in our heart for too long? How did it make you feel? Heavy, weigh you down. What else? Confused. What else?
Frustrated.
Guilty, frustrated. These things that just come with us holding on to our feelings. Because those feelings, those characteristics, because God is saying, I've designed you and created you to communicate, to have conversation. We were talking about in our small group last night. Men, it started when we were little boys. If a little boy was running across here right now and tripped up on his cord and scraped his knee, what would we say to him?
Don't cry.
Get up! You bet not cry. You all right? Shake it off. Some of us are grown men and we still trying to shake it off. We still looking at ourselves and say, you bet not cry. Deal with it. And God created us to be emotional, to have a sense of compassion, to allow him to tap into us and us to tap into him. But when we put that manly wall up, that wall of pride and that wall of I got it and that wall I don't need nobody, then we find ourselves with those characteristics of it's heavy, I'm frustrated, it's hurting. We end up snapping at our spouse. We snapping at the kids because we're trying to figure it out. The bills is getting heavy. We're trying to figure it out. My body ain't working like it used to work. I'm trying to figure it out. My wife ain't acting like how she used to act. I'm trying to work it out. She ain't looking like the first day I met her. I'm trying to figure it out. But I'm not talking to nobody. Come to church. Hey, brother. Hey, how you doing, brother? What's going on, brother Doc? Brother Doc. Hey, how you doing, brother Corey? Brother. Hey, how you doing, brother? We so quick to say brother. And don't treat each other like brother.
Come on.
Yeah. We don't talk to our brothers. So we're saying, here we have David dealing with this hurt, carrying this sin, carrying this pain. David said, it make me feel like my bones is drying up. I feel the weight of your hand on me. I'm tossing and turning at night. because I just hadn't talked to nobody. So not only we dealing with that moment of silence and we dealing with that moment of sorrow, we see that here that the sweet psalmist of Israel seems to have lost his song. The moisture of heaven in his soul has dried up. David is broken by the weight of his sins. He had no joy. His entire life is now growing unstable. He's suffering under the chastisement of the Lord, and he knew it. And the biggest piece that did it for David was that he knew that God knew.
Okay.
So as we sit here, we understand that when we sin against the Lord, we can be sure of his chastisement.
That's
Prove it to you. Somebody turns to Revelation 3:19. Revelation 3:19. You find it, read it for us.
I correct and discipline everyone I love. So be diligent and turn from your indifferences.
All right. Hebrews 12. Hebrews 12. 6 through 12. Hebrews 12. 6 through 12.
For the Lord disciplines those he loves, and he punishes each one he accepts as his child. As you endure this divine discipline, remember that God is not treating you as his own children. Whoever heard of a child who is never disciplined by his father? If God doesn't discipline you as he does all of his children, it means that you are illegitimate and are not really his children, Lord have mercy, at all. Since we are respected, since we respected our earthly fathers who disciplined us, shouldn't we submit even more to the discipline of the Father of our spirits and live forever?
Amen. This table over here, we were just talking about beatings, not whoopings. I know some of you may grew up in real strong households, stable households where your parents said, time out. Okay, you grew up that way, no problem. In my house, it was knockout. We grew up and we talked about beatings and those, and think about, we're talking about everybody over here is at least 30 plus years old. And everybody could recall, I'm talking about 5-year-old whoopings, 6-year-old whoopings, 8-year-old whoopings, the worst whooping of my life, the last whooping that I received. And we all came to the same conclusion. It was those whoopings that made us. It was those whoopings because it was those whoopings that taught us a certain level of respect. How many of you have seen a child and you look at that child and say, all that boy needs is a beat. That's all he needs. Just let me talk to him for about 5 minutes. Let them come on my house for a few minutes and let me deal with him. And let me deal with him. And God is doing that same way with us. God is saying, no. All this boy needs is a beat. Because we can't act like we gonna sin and daddy ain't gonna see it. Come on now, you know daddy gonna see it. And when daddy see it, he gotta react to it. Because if he didn't react to it, then that makes him contrary to his word. So you can't say, okay, weeping may endure for a night, and then feel like daddy ain't gonna tap on you every once in a while. So we have to wrap our minds around the fact that, men, when we sin, there's some chastisement that comes with our sin. Pastor made a statement and he said, this encounter shouldn't just be a personal thing. The reason that that's important, David's sin wasn't just a personal thing.
Right.
David's sin messed up his entire house.
Yeah.
Sir.
I mean, we know, okay, God told him, okay, David, I'm going to spare you, but I'm going to kill the baby, but this sword shall remain in your house. David lost sons, David lost daughters, son raped his daughter. It was a mess because of David's sin. So when we get ready to make certain decisions, it's no longer a I decision.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's no longer how this is going to impact me. I know this is going to feel good for a minute, but your daughter is going to suffer.
Wow.
See that, sir?
I know this is going to feel good for right now, but what about my son that's 5 right now?
Yeah. Think about it.
This moment, I know I'm in this room with this woman and it's going to feel good right now, but I got to go back into my house. That's going to suffer.
Tell them.
So we sit here and we see David now dealing with this. David processing this level of sin, going through this level of sin for over a year now. And we say that, okay, we wonder why God waited so long. And now when we get to this piece of Nathan, not only did God have to get David ready, but God had to get Nathan ready.
All right.
When we look at, there's 3 things that I'm going to talk about and then I'm going to be out your way. The first thing, everyone say the confrontation.
The confrontation.
Confrontation.
God had to ready Nathan for this confrontation. Even though Nathan was the prophet, David was still the king.
Yeah.
Nathan couldn't approach David
Yeah.
out of respect for who David was. Because Nathan had to understand that David can still kill me if he don't like what I say. Nathan didn't confront David in a party setting and he put David on blast. Nathan didn't hop on social media and put David on blast. Nathan gave respect to the position
Yeah.
and to the title.
Yeah.
Men, we have to understand that as we adopt our Nathan, the Nathan that's within us, I can't confront Dalton like he's my son. I got to confront him like he's a man. I got to give him that respect.
Yeah.
Because think about how we approach one another. If I come to Dalton with a level of disrespect, what do you think he's going to give me back? Dalton, I don't like that. I don't like what you did. I heard what you did. I need to holler at you about something. That ain't going to get me nowhere. That ain't going to get me nowhere. So we got to look at the confrontation. We got to look at how when Nathan came to David, Nathan waited for the king to raise the scepter and receive him to say, I'm ready to have a conversation with you. Nathan didn't barge in on David. He didn't force himself into David's space. He came to David with a position of wisdom and respect. Gentlemen, we got to respect one another.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We got to respect one another. David didn't allow his emotion to get ahead of his position. Meaning, it's obvious that Nathan had a lot of respect for David. And if you read the backstory, you understand that Nathan was hurt too. Nathan was hurt. Nathan said that he had to toss and turn. He couldn't sleep. He kept hearing it in the palace. He kept seeing the vision. Nathan, the same hell that David was going through for them 12 months, Nathan was going through it too. Because God was dealing with him, getting him ready. But he didn't allow his emotion to get ahead of his position. So you got to remember, if I'm coming to talk to Jay, I'm not coming to talk to a little boy. I'm coming to have a conversation with a grown man. And if nothing else, we have to respect each other at that place. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had somebody who just came to you wrong?
Yep.
How did it make you feel?
Attitude adjustment.
Attitude adjustment. Were you ready to listen to them? I'm talking about male or female. It's not the fact of what they saying, sometimes just how you saying it to me.
That's right. Yes, sir.
I mean, why you feel like you need to holler at me? Why you feel like you need to yell at me? So not only do we have the confrontation, but now let's look at the conversation. Somebody say conversation.
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 You can tell that Nathan used wisdom in this, and Nathan gave some thought to this thing. Nathan's like, I'm gonna go talk to the king. I gotta go talk to David, and the message that I'm getting ready to say to David is gonna be a heavy message. It's not gonna be a pitty-pat cotton candy message. I gotta really let David know something, but I gotta make sure I talk in a way that David can understand. People say, well, why did Nathan decide to talk about sheep? Out of everything that he could have talked about, Nathan decided to start the conversation with sheep. Because you got to remember, it was David who penned, "The Lord is my shepherd.
Yeah.
I shall not want." It was David who was a shepherd himself. So if anybody had an understanding about sheep, it was David. If anybody had a soft spot in their heart for sheep, it was David. And when we approach each other in conversation, our conversation ought to align to our conversation with Christ, so we can know that we can communicate to this brother in a way that he can understand it.
Right.
Have you had somebody ever just talk above you? How did it make you feel? Little. What else? How did it make you feel? A person talk above you.
Disrespected.
Disrespected. Inadequate. Make you feel small. So we got to think about that. Are you spending time with God before you confront your brother?
Yeah.
Are you asking God, what is it that I need to say to this brother? How is it that I need to say it to this brother? Lord, give me the words to say. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Because when we approach one another, we have to be ready for the conversation, but we need to be aware of the conversation that we're trying to have. Nathan says, there was a king, there was two men, rich man and poor man. Rich man had a bunch of sheep. Whole bunch of sheep, David. Poor man only had one little ewe lamb. One little sheep, and he cared so much about that sheep, like that sheep was his only child. And the rich man took that poor man's only sheep. And it's strange how upset David got about that sheep. David got furious. David said, first of all, that man is going to have to pay 4 times the amount. And then after he do that, that man should be put to death. Now he got upset about the sheep. And then at that point, Nathan, when David said, well, Nathan, who is this man?
Punchline.
Nathan said a phrase to David then that has been reshaped today. Nathan used the phrase of correction.
Mm-hmm.
And today we use that same phrase to uplift somebody. Nathan said, David, you are the man. But when we look at each other today, you the man. You the man. Oh man, boy, you got the women, boy, you the man. Ooh, boy, that's your car. You the man. Boy, that's where you working at? Ooh, you the man.
$50,000.
$50,000? Woo! You the man.